I'm sure most of you have heard these two pieces of advice. First, be kind to others. You never know what another person is going through. And second, when you're struggling, reach out for help. You're not alone. I'm here today to tell you how these two things have helped through in my life and how they have been crucial for me to keep going. I was born with an intestinal malrotation, and in 2017, I had 2 major bowel surgeries because I kept having bowel obstructions. After those surgeries, I would get these random episodes where I would vomit non-stop for 24 hours, and then I would be totally okay. Nobody could really tell me why these episodes were happening. The morning of September 13, 2018, it was during the first week of my second year of university. My day started as usual. I woke up, got ready in the morning, caught the bus to go to campus, and went to the gym. My day started going sideways when in the middle of my gym session, I started having horrible stomach pain. I automatically knew it was going to be one of those days where I would just vomit, and then I would be okay. At least that's what I thought. Because I was terrified of those episodes, I continued my day like nothing was happening in the hopes that the pain would go away on its own. After the gym, I went to office hours and then to the library to wait for my next class. I also decided to eat lunch, even though deep inside me, I knew it was a very bad decision since it was going to make my episode worse. And guess what happened? My episode turned into a little bit of a nightmare. After eating lunch, my stomach pain got extremely bad to the point that I had difficulty walking. I still went to class. Don't ask me why, because till this day, I don't know the reason. I sat down in class and I could not stop crying. My tears would be wetting the paper. The person sitting next to me asked me, "Is everything okay?" And I just said no. She took me out of the classroom and asked me what was going on. I explained to her that I would get these random episodes. So she told me to go home and that she was going to share the class notes with me. The next thing that I realized is that I was on the other side of campus and I had to walk all the way to the bus stop to be able to get a ride home. So I started reaching out for a few friends to see if somebody could just help me walk across campus. At this point, you may be thinking, where are her parents? Why didn't she call them or any family member? I'm an international student and I have 0 family in Canada. Anyways, I was able to get a hold of a friend, and a few minutes later, he came to where I was to help me out. He grabbed my bag, and I had to stop in every single bathroom I could find to vomit. At that point, my stomach pain was so unbearable, and my stomach was so distended, I could not walk straight anymore. I finally reached the bus stop where I was able to get a ride home. I lay in my bed for about an hour until I could not handle the pain anymore. It started to feel way more intense than in my usual episodes. So I grabbed my phone and I Googled the emergency waiting times for the University of Alberta Hospital, which at that time, it was the only hospital I knew about. The emergency waiting time was 6 hours. And I remember thinking to myself, I prefer to die in my bed than waiting for that long in an emergency room. Another thing that I remember, it was this red message on the website saying, "If this is an emergency, call 911. I thought for about 2 minutes, is this an emergency? Until I was like, who knows when I'm calling 911 anyways. I called 911 and they told me that the ambulance was on its way. The paramedics knocked loudly on the door, but at that point I couldn't even go downstairs. My roommate was on the main floor, so I yelled if she could open the door. The paramedics came into my room, and before I knew it, I had all these cables on my chest and I was already in the ambulance bed. Because it was September and we're in Canada, of course it was snowing and cold. Anyways, the paramedics start pushing the bed towards the ambulance when I realized that my parents were absolutely panicking because the last thing that I texted them is that I was calling an ambulance. I had so many missed calls and so many texts, so I politely asked my roommate if she could deal with them for the time being. My roommate came with me in the ambulance and they took me to the Misericordia Hospital. I was in the emergency room for about 7 hours. The doctor did all kinds of tests and came to the conclusion that I had a kidney infection and sent me home. He also told me to drink a lot of water since I was dehydrated from all the vomiting, and it was also going to help my infection. So that's exactly what I did. And when I arrived finally at 1 a.m. at my house, I slept till about 4 a.m. Then I woke up vomiting all the water that I just drank a couple hours before. At that time, I knew I was not having a kidney infection. My roommate wasn't sleeping in the couch downstairs. So I went down, woke her up, and told her I needed to go to the hospital again. We took an Uber at 5 in the morning, and I vomited the whole way to the hospital. When I arrived to the hospital, I saw the same nurse that just sent me home a couple hours before. And she asked me, "What are you doing here?" And all I remember telling her was, "Because this is not a freaking kidney infection." Another doctor saw me, did a couple of tests, and asked me, "Who diagnosed you with a kidney infection?" He was in complete disbelief that somebody could have said something so wrong. At that moment, I knew I was having another bowel obstruction. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew it. I had to get more CT scans and more ultrasounds until I finally heard what I knew this whole time. You're having a bowel obstruction and you need surgery right away. You're going to meet the surgeon in the next hour or so. Before I realized it, I already met the surgeon and I was in the surgery room. It is important to mention that through this whole time, my parents were losing their minds, worried, not knowing what the heck was going on. I, again, asked my roommate to please deal with them because I could barely handle myself at that moment. All I remember my parents saying before I went into surgery was, "Don't worry, we'll be there with you soon. We're looking for tickets." I went into surgery, and a couple hours later, I was in the recovery room. They had cut my belly all open all over again, and I had cables and catheters all over my body. Luckily, my roommate was in the room with me, making sure I was okay. The next morning, my parents arrived from Mexico. It was the first time seeing each other in over a year. We had all kinds of emotions: happiness, fear, confusion, sadness. I was in the hospital for about a week, and at that time, I had to make the difficult decision to drop the university semester. And I know you're probably thinking right now, well, of course. And yeah, nowadays it makes sense. But at that time, it really felt like the whole world was collapsing over my shoulders, because a few weeks before, I got my first ever job in Canada, and dropping the semester meant that I was not allowed to work due to the conditions on my study permit. My mom stayed in Edmonton with me for about 2 months until she was sure that I was able to do things by myself, such as walking, grocery shopping, cleaning, etc. To be honest, that has been one of my hardest goodbyes. She left, and all of a sudden I realized I was on my own. My mental health really started suffering, so I decided to reach out for help. I accessed some of the university resources, specifically Access Open Minds and counseling services. And I can tell you now that they really saved me. When I went back to university in the winter term of 2019, it was really tough. I still did not have enough energy to walk around, study, and work. I had to carefully plan my days to make sure I was not running all over the place. During that semester, I also started having constant chronic pain all over my body. I went to all kinds of doctors, they did all kinds of tests, and everything was coming back fine. After months of many appointments and many blood tests, I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia. At 21 years old, I had to relearn how to live, since I was in constant pain and exhaustion while still trying to meet my daily responsibilities. On top of that, after months of intense work with my therapist, it became clear that I had post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, from my surgeries back in 2017 and my most recent surgery in 2018. The next step was actually working through my PTSD. And I can tell you now that that was a very challenging time in my life. I would get like 3 or 4 panic attacks a day, and I would get them everywhere. Lecture halls, buses, library, at home. Sometimes I would be getting panic attacks, and strangers would come to me and ask me if I was okay. Some of them even sat down beside me, hugged me, and told me, "I don't know what you're going through, but everything will be okay." These kind of interactions made me feel seen, heard, and valued. The first few months of working through my PTSD were very lonely. Most of my close people thought that doctors just opened me, closed me, and that was it. So when I tried to explain to them what I was going through, I was simply not understood. These strangers taking the time to do what they did really helped me to not completely throw the towel. I remember one specific time where I was having suicidal thoughts. I was in a yoga class when this thought started, and I automatically went into a panic attack. I left the class, and I ran to one of the university resources that I knew was open at that time. People there brought me back to a safe mental space, and that night I stayed over at a friend's house because I knew it was not safe for me to sleep alone that night. Working through my PTSD has been very rewarding because it has involved a lot of personal growth, but it has also been the hardest thing I have ever done. I remember one time in one session with my therapist, I remember telling him, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of feeling. I am tired of trying to get through. He responded to me by saying, Mariana, the only way to heal it is to feel it. The only way out is through. This phrase has stayed with me since. And I can tell you now, I would have not been able to stay true to this phrase without the support from people. People have been my pillar to find the strength to face challenges, get through them, and come out the other side. You may have noticed by now that the support from people is a recurrent theme in my talk. And these people have included my parents, roommates, friends, strangers, and professionals. In moments where I feel like I could not push through any longer, in moments where I felt like nothing was worth it, in moments where I was ready to throw the towel and stop trying, people were there. People showed up and people showed that they care and that I'm valuable. And they helped me find a little extra strength to keep going. Next time you find yourself struggling, not knowing where to start or how to keep going, just know that people care. These people may not necessarily be individuals that you expect. It may be strangers that you don't even know the names. If this sounds too bizarre, just know that there's always resources available to help. Just make sure you reach out. If there's something I have learned at a young age, is that avoiding feelings and situations seems to be the easiest way out, but avoiding them doesn't solve anything. Sitting with your feelings and working through hardships is scary and challenging, but it's also very rewarding. It allows you to break patterns and find new ones. And from my experience, having people around you makes the healing process easier and less intimidating. So next time life gets hard and you find yourself struggling, rely on people and remember that the only way out is through. Thank you.